Hello everybody and welcome to the Stone Dogs 40k. My name's Mike and today I am playing a just over 2,000 points game of Necrons versus Space Marines using the Leviathan mission deck. We've got Crucible of Battle for deployment, so the armies are split across the corners, so Space Marines are taking this corner and Necrons are taking this corner. Got 5 objectives on the battlefield, one in the dead center and then one 12 inches up and 10 inches up and 12 inches across, and then one 16 inches up and 14 inches across, and then the same at the opposite end. So we've got a line of 3 diagonally this way, and then the 3 that come this way, including the central one, are in no man's land. Primary mission is Sites of Power, which basically means that the 3 objectives in no man's land, these 3 across here, are at the end of each command phase you can, if it's your turn, you can empower those sites of power that you control. So if you have one or more character models from your army within range, each site of power remains empowered by that player, while one or more of their character models remains within range of it. In the second, third and fourth battle rounds, at the end of each player's command phase, the player whose turn it is scores victory points up to a maximum of 15 by having each objective marker they control, they score 3, and each site of power that they have empowered, they also score 3. So these are cumulative, so you could potentially score 6 for each empowered objective. And then in the 5th battle round, the player who has the first turn scores victory points as described above. The player who has the second turn scores victory points as described above, but does so at the end of their turn instead of at the end of their command phase. That's kind of pretty standard scoring, I think. And then we're using the secondary mission objectives as well. Now the Space Marines are the defenders, and the Necrons are the attackers. So let's have a look at the armies. So at the end of the first movement phase for the Space Marines, the Devastators have stayed put. The veterans have just jumped up into this building here, and this lieutenant has moved forwards. The aggressors have stayed put. Several advances and standard moves in the middle here, and then over the far side, just work my way around there, excuse my shadow, we've got the Outriders. Although these are obviously bikers, I'm using them as Outriders. They've advanced into the left-hand flank here and then into the building there. These guys have stayed put, and then the intercessors have all advanced forwards because they've only got 24-inch range on their bolt rifles, so they need to get into range before they can shoot. Same with the lieutenant, librarian, and then the hellblasters have also advanced again 24 inches on their weapons. And then finally, the Eversaw assassin is just down in behind this building here. Okay, that's the end of Space Marines movement. So end of the Space Marines shooting phase, started off over the far side, and shots basically from the bikes and the infiltrators and the two intercessor squads here into this unit of Canoptic Wraiths. Took one out, didn't reanimate, and then shots from the heavy bolter here took off 2 wounds from the middle one there. And then finally the Devastators down here with the las cannons managed to take out one of these Canoptic Wraiths, and again it didn't reanimate. That's the end of the shooting phase. There are no charges, so we're into Necrons next. End of the Necron movement phase for turn 1. So basically everything that hasn't got a ranged weapon has advanced. So we've got advances from the Scarab Swarms here, from these guys, from the Canoptic Wraiths, and a Scarab Swarm over here. There's a few other units that have advanced because they wouldn't be in range to shoot anyway. So everything has basically moved up the field, apart from that unit of Necron Warriors, which has stayed put. Okay, shooting is next. End of the Necron shooting phase. The destroyers here have managed to take out one of the veterans from this squad, and then combined fire from the 2 arcs have taken out 3 members of the infiltrator squad just here, and they've also managed to take out 1 bike from the Outrider unit just down here. So that's the end of shooting for Necrons. Charge phase is next, and it's just 1 charge, which is these Wraiths into the infiltrators, which we're going to do now. Okay, so that's 5 inches, and they are in. Close just in there. So end of the fight phase on the Necrons, and the Wraith that was on 1 wound has been destroyed, but they've managed to take 1 wound off of the remaining infiltrators. So 3 wounds left there, 3 wounds left there. That's the end of the fight phase. So it's into turn 2 we go. So before I go into Space Marines turn 2, back at the beginning I drew Defend Stronghold for one of the secondary secondary missions for the Space Marines, and that one, when you draw that on the first turn, you're supposed to recycle it back into the deck, which I forgot to do, so I've drawn this one instead. So we've now got Secure No Man's Land, Extend Battle Lines, and Bring It Down. So Space Marines movement phase. Okay, end of the movement phase. At the end of the command phase, in the command phase, I needed to do a battle shock test for the infiltrator unit that's just there. They passed, no problem at all. Gained a CP, however, then spent it on a reroll for an advance on this guy here, the Gravis Captain. He rolled a 1 on his advance, re-rolled it and got a 5, so he's moved up quite a bit. These guys have stayed put, as have the Devastators just down here. Everything else has either moved or advanced to get further up the board, apart from the Hellblasters, which are just sitting at the back there, just in case. That's the end of movement. Shooting is next. So the intercessors made short work of that Canoptic Wraith. Looking at their data card, close combat weapons, now they get 3 attacks each, so that's obviously 15 attacks going in. Did actually 5 wounds. The Canoptic Wraith didn't reanimate, so that's the end of Space Marines turn number 2. Alright, end of the Necrons movement phase for turn number 2. Significantly, a lot of the units have actually got really good advances on them. The Doomsday Arc has advanced up to here, only by 1 inch, but it's almost in the jaws of the Outriders just here. All of the Canoptech units have advanced, so right over the far side there you'll see we've got Scarabs and the remaining Wraith in easy charge range of the Devastators. This unit hasn't moved again. I kept this unit back just to kind of give a bit of cover on the deployment zone. And then the Spider has moved up, the Destroyers have moved up, these guys have moved up, then the Immortals, both units of Immortals have just moved, standard move, and then the Flayed ones have advanced as well. So yeah, so it's been quite a big shift up the board for the Necrons. Shooting is next. Alright, end of the shooting phase for the Necrons. These 2 vehicles shot into the intercessor unit here and managed to do no damage whatsoever. The Lucas Destroyers have taken one of the aggressors out from here, and over the far side the Immortals, who are here and here, have both shot into the Devastators and taken 3 of those out, so that unit now has just a flamer and a heavy bolter in it. That's the end of shooting, and charges are next. And what we're going to do is we're going to charge these 2 Scarab units and this Wraith into the Devastators. And I think also what we're going to do is we're going to charge... no, we're not. We're going to leave those on that objective for now. So, charges for the Scarabs. 7 inches for this one. And then this unit, 6 inches. I think that's okay. Looks like it's only about 5. Yeah, that's good. And then the Wraith gets a 7. Is that? That looks like that might be a little bit short. Yeah, so that's a failed charge on that Wraith, but that's fine. Just consolidate these guys in. There we go. Okay, fight phase is next. So at the end of the fight phase, the Scarabs didn't do any wounds on the Devastators. The Devastators did 3 wounds in return, which meant that the Scarab that was here on 3 wounds was taken out. It didn't reanimate, but it did explode, which took a mortal wound off of this guy. So that's that combat over. And we just need to do a combat attrition or whatever it is for these guys. Oh, leadership is 6 and they've rolled a 5. Oh dear, that's not good. So we're back into Space Marines. This is turn number 3. Just done the command phase. This unit is now battle shocked, so not that it really matters, bearing in mind where they are and what they're doing, but that's just something to note. Otherwise, it's movement. So movement phase for Space Marines turn number 3 is over. Hellblasters have now actually moved forwards to get into range of the Doomsday Arc. This squad and the infiltrators that are here haven't moved. Everything else has just moved forwards. Similarly, in the centre, we've got moves and advances going on all the way across the line. The only unit that hasn't moved, or the two units that haven't moved, is this unit of infiltrators. And obviously the Devastators over there because they're battle shocked. And then finally, the reserve units have dropped in over the back line here. So we've got the Space Monkeys and 2 units of Reavers just dropped in 9 inches away from these units. That is the end of the movement phase. Shooting is next. So end of the shooting phase for the Space Marines. Let's start over here. So concentrated fire into the Lich Guard, took out 4 of them. There's 1 remaining there. Couldn't quite get those last couple of wounds off. The solitary Wraith that was sitting here has been taken out by the veterans just here. Several bits of other shooting from over the back here. Basically, these 10 Reavers shot into this squad of Immortals and did no damage. And then the Space Monkeys shot into this squad over here and took 3, I think 4 out, and then 1 reanimated. So there's 7 left in that squad. And then finally over here, the Outriders, 2 squads, 5 bikes in total, shot everything into the death marks, but only managed to take 1 out from there who didn't reanimate. So that's the end of the shooting. Charges are next. End of the charge phase, and the Intercessor squad and the Librarian and Terminator armour have charged into the last remaining Lich Guard. Over the back here, the first Reaver squad attempted a charge and failed, so with a command point reroll they made it into the Immortals. This squad then failed a charge, and then these guys were going to charge into the Warlord over here, but then they rolled an 8 and they needed a 9, so they failed that as well. And then finally over this side we've got the Outriders who have all charged into the last 3 death marks. Okay. Fight phase is next. That's the end of the fight phase for the Space Marines for turn number 3. The death marks over here, there's only 2 left. The last Lich Guard has gone in the middle there. And then down here, one of the Immortals has been taken out, didn't reanimate. And then finally over here, no damage on the Devastators, but the Scarab Swarm here has taken 1 additional wound. So that is the end of Space Marines turn number 3. So end of the Necrons movement phase, starting in this corner. So the Tomb Blades have just consolidated onto this objective. The Psycho or Plasmamancer, whatever it is now, has just moved across here because I think these death marks are going to need some support. The command barge has swung across here to bear onto the Space Monkeys, as have these Necron warriors and the Lord. Over this side, the flayed ones who were here have done an advance of 11 inches to get over to here. The Immortals and the Warlord have just moved onto this objective. These guys have moved across from here to start engaging into these units. Spiders moved up, Destroyers have moved up. The Ghost Ark has moved forwards, and the Necrons have all jumped out with the Royal Warden. And then finally over the far side there you'll see the Destruction Ark, whatever it's called, which has also moved forwards to potentially use its enormous bulk to try and squash some of these intercessors. End of the Necron shooting phase. What's been going on? This guy, the Doomsday Ark, nowhere really for him to shoot because the bikes are in combat down here. So he basically took out one of the one of the scout guys, these guys here. This guy and the Necrons and the Royal Warden have taken out that central unit of intercessors. Over the back here, the Necron warriors took off 1 wound off of these guys. the aggressors, not the aggressors, are they aggressors? No, they're not the aggressors, are they? And then the command barge took off another wound off of them. These guys shot back here and did no damage. That's pretty much it. So there you go. Okay, end of the charge phase. This Psychomancer, Technomancer, whatever it is, has charged into the bikes. The Necron warriors have made it in, but the Overlord has been left high and dry over here. And then finally in the centre, these Scorpec destroyers, whatever they're called, have made it into the aggressor squad over there. So that's the end of charges. Fight phase is next. Just one more caveat from the charge phase is that I decided that the Doomsday Ark would in fact charge into the intercessors to protect it from fire from both Hellblaster squads, because they could obviously do quite a lot of damage. It's on 12 wounds, could even take it out. So tactical decision, just get that into there to protect it from incoming fire. Fight phase is next. Okay, so end of the fight phase for Necron's turn 3. 1 wound off the Doomsday Ark. Weirdly, no wounds off of the intercessors. Pretty much a stalemate here, but the Technomancer has lost a wound from the bikes. Over at the back here, there's a wound off the Inceptor squad. These guys have taken 3 out from each side. Didn't get any reanimations there. And then there's 1 Space Marine and 2 Immortals gone from this combat. And then if we just spin round to this side, in the centre, these guys have taken out 1 more aggressor and dropped this sergeant down to two wounds, and in turn he has taken off 2 wounds from this unit. And then finally, 1 more Scarab Swarm gone from here, and there's still wounds remaining on these guys. So that combat will plough on probably until the end of the game, looking at it. So that's the end of the Necron turn. Currently, points are 36 to the Space Marines and 43 to the Necrons. So it's still quite close. We'll see what happens in turn 4. End of Space Marines movement phase. These guys have stayed put. The veterans and this lieutenant have just moved up to support the aggressor. These characters, these heroes, have just moved in to start challenging these Necrons here. No movement over this side because everything's locked in combat. And then over this side, we've got the 2nd Intercessor Squad and a lieutenant who have just moved in to support. These 2 characters have moved forwards as well, and I've left the Hellblasters where they are because they can actually target the Ghost Ark. So that's 10 plasma incinerators, which will hopefully do some good level of damage there. So that's the end of the movement phase. Shooting is next. So end of a terrible shooting phase for the Space Marines. So what's happened? There's been some Necrons taken out from this unit just down behind the Ghost Ark here. These guys took out 3 or 4, and then I think 1 or 2 reanimated, and then shots from over here came in and took out some more, and then again 1 or 2 reanimated. Shot from the Absolver bolt pistol on the chaplain took out another 1. So there's 5 Necrons gone from that unit down there. The Hellblasters shot into the Ghost Ark, took off a wound or 2. I think they start on 14 wounds, but one of those guys blew himself up in the meantime. And then the infiltrators just down here shot down into the destroyers, failed to do any damage. And that's pretty much it. I've just realised that there's an Eversaw assassin sat down in that little shadow there. He's so dark you can hardly see him. He hasn't moved for 3 turns. So I'm going to move him now, and then we'll get into the charge phase. End of the charge phase. So all the veterans and the lieutenant have just made it in to support the lone aggressor in this combat here. All of the characters have made it into the Necrons just over here. And if we spin round to this side, we've now got the infiltrator who was up here, rolled a huge charge, so it's come all the way around here. Intercessors and lieutenant have made it in. Librarian and chaplain have also made it in, so this Doomsday Ark is now a bit beleaguered. And then also the assassin that I did mention was hidden just down in there, has just jumped forward to here. I did run a shooting round for him just to see if he could do anything, but he failed to do anything. I think he's a bit hacked off, that he's been ignored for 3 rounds. So that's the end of charges. Fight phase is next. Okay, so end of the fight phase for Space Marines. What's been going on? This whatever it's called, the shooty arc is down to 7 wounds. There's about 4 more Necrons gone from down here. The death marks have been destroyed, and the crypto, whatever it's called, is down to 1 wound. Over here, one of the Inceptors has been taken out. They didn't manage to do any damage in return. Stalemate here. One of the Immortals gone from here. Over in the middle here, the last aggressor has been killed. However, one of these, whatever they're called, I can't remember what they're called now. This one's down to 1 wound, so one of those has been taken out. And then finally over here, it's just the lowly Devastator Sergeant who's left on 1 wound. And that is the end of the fight phase for the Space Marines for turn 4. Into the movement phase for the Necrons, and the Ghost Ark, which was here, which wasn't actually in this melee, has just swiveled across and moved on to the objective, OC of 2. So I'm not sure that that actually gives them that objective, but the destroyers are actually going to move just over to this side slightly, just to give them a bit more control of that one. What else have we done? The Tomb Blades have moved from the objective across to challenge these bikes, and then the command barge has moved up on an advance to get back on this objective. And the Canoptic Reanimator, which is now here, was over here, so that's just moved across to support the destroyers. The Spider has moved 5 inches forwards to get into charge range here, and then the Overlord, who was here, has just moved 5 inches to get to challenge onto this combat just here. Everything else has stayed put. So it's shooting next. Not much going on in the Necrons shooting phase. The Tomb Blades tried to shoot the Outriders and failed to score any wounds. That thing there couldn't shoot. The Ghost Ark shot into the Infiltrator squad just up the back there, took 1 out and did an additional wound, so there's 3 wounds out of that squad. That is pretty much it. Not any further damage anywhere, so I'm going to move into the charge phase now. Charge phase complete, so Tomb Blades are into the Outriders just down here. The Assassin has swept off of this building and back into the back of the Necron Warriors just here. The Spider has charged into the Veterans over this side, and the Overlord, who was just here, has charged into the Inceptors. So that's the end of charges. Fight phase is coming up next. So end of the fight phase for the Necrons. Not a lot going in their favour, to be fair. 2 of the Tomb Blades have gone from here. The Technomancer is down to 1 wound. The Doomsday Ark is down to 3 wounds, just through all of the attacks going in from all of these intercessors and chaplains and librarians, etc., etc. The Assassin has swung around and got rid of 2 more of the Necrons from here. The Veterans have gone from over there. There's still that lieutenant left. And then over this side, the last of the mortals has been killed here. There's one of the Inceptors gone from there, and that final Devastator has been killed. So not too bad, but yeah, could have been better. That's the end of the fight phase. So let's go into the next round. So just going into turn number 5, battle round number 5, so it'll be Space Marines going first. Just wanted to update the score. So at the end of battle round number 4, it was 44 to the Space Marines and 48 to the Necrons. So it is very, very close. So this being the final battle round, it'd be interesting to see if the Space Marines can pull back those last few points. So Space Marines movement is coming up next. Okay, so turn 5 movement for Space Marines. What have we done? The infiltrator squad, I can't remember what they're called. They've just moved forwards, still on that objective. This squad has moved forwards, and this squad has moved forwards. Obviously, they're heavy weapons, so need to bear that in mind. And then finally, over on this side, the Reavers that were up here have just moved down to help get rid of this last pesky flayed one. So that's the end of movement. Shooting is next. Charge phase is over, so the 3 Reavers that were over here have made it in on a 7, I believe. The infiltrator squad that was back here rolled an 8, which wasn't quite enough, so did a command point re-roll and rolled a 9, so they made it into the spider. And then finally over the far side, the squad of Hellblasters that was here, that only had a 3-man, or only had 3 men left in it, they rolled a 10 on their charge, so they've made it all the way around to here. So hopefully with 3 wounds left on that, there should be enough infantry around this this Doomsday Ark now to get it to well, maybe I don't want it to blow up, but we need to get rid of it. So fight phase is next. End of the Space Marines fight phase for turn number 5. Big event of the turn is that the Doomsday Ark has gone. It was whittled down to 1 wound by all of these guys, and then the chaplain managed to take the last wound off, and guess what, he exploded. So mortal wounds all around. So there's I think a Hellblaster gone from here, 2 wounds off here, 2 wounds off here. There was a wound that came off that squad, and a wound that came off that squad, and there was a lieutenant here who's gone as well. He was killed. In terms of what's going on down here, no difference, no wounds on either side. The Technomancer is gone, and then these guys have consolidated towards the command barge. In the centre, the last few Necron warriors have been dispatched, so now it's 5 against 1 with the Royal Warden in the centre there. The lieutenant has gone from here, and then 2 more of the infiltrators have gone from that squad. And then finally over here, there's still 1 of the flayed ones left in combat just here. So that is the end of Space Marines turn 5. Okay, Necron's shooting phase is over. The destroyers here shot through and cleared out that Hellblaster squad that had 4 men in it. And then over here, the command barges got rid of the 2 bikes that were kind of lining up to charge. That's the end of shooting, so it's the charge phase next. End of the charge phase, and the destroyers have charged in around the Ghost Ark to get into this combat to support the Royal Warden. The command barge attempted to charge across here, needed an 8 and rolled a 4, so did a command point re-roll and rolled a 5, so didn't make that charge. And then over here, the Scarabs, who had scuttled across from here to this point, this break in the wall, have charged through. The first one that's got 1 unit left has gone all the way around. It rolled an 11, and the second one rolled a 9, so they've just hit the infiltrators in the flank. That is the end of the charges. The fight phase is next. Right, having reached the end of turn number 5 for the Necrons, just have a quick scout over the board. The Tomb Blade, the final one, has gone from here, lost its last wound to the bikes. One of the destroyers has gone from the centre. There's a wound off the Apothecary and a wound off the Gravis Captain, but the Royal Warden is still standing. Over in this corner, the last flayed one has been taken out, and then the 2 remaining squads of Reavers have consolidated. No damage on either side on this combat just here. And then finally up in the centre, the 2 infiltrators have been dispatched by the Spider, but not before they dispatched the single swarm that was left on 3 wins. So that is the end of the battle. So the score at the end was 57 to the Space Marines and 69 to the Necrons, so it's a Necron win. I think that was mostly due to poor positioning for the Space Marines. There's a big group of intercessors and characters over here that haven't done anything for 2 turns because they were tied up with the Ark, the one that blew up. So yeah, that was probably too much focus on that from the get-go. However, obviously that did give us points for Bring It Down. In terms of what else has been going on, obviously there's been a lot of units tied up down in this corner after they sprung in on Deep Strike. From the Necron's perspective, this unit has consistently scored points through the game just by sitting there, and the Space Marines didn't really do anything to counter that. So that's probably the reason why the Necrons won. So anyway, that's the end of the game. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you all soon.